Welcome back, everybody. Again, I am the Calm Scribe, and tonight we are in conversation with Eli Kwake. And Eli Kwake does not do boring. When they aren't writing, they're doing theater, burlesque, or making mischief at a Renaissance festival. But mostly they're writing, lost in a world of their own making. After all, why live in reality when there's so many other worlds to explore? A sentiment I cannot agree with more, and cannot help but feel jealous I did not come up with myself. That is a fantastic tagline. How are you tonight, Eli?
I'm doing well. I hope you're doing well as well.
I am. It's been a good day so far. It's been, yeah, I have to say it's been good. So, though I do have like an eyelash or something in my eye tonight.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, always fun. Thank you for joining me from what appears to be sunny Tuscany.
Yeah, it's not Tuscany. It is the car in Pasadena because my AC is out in my apartment. So.
Oh, that's
But
terrible.
this looks much nicer than my car.
Yeah, again, I can't green screen when I do this. But this is definitely not the time that you want to have your AC be out.
No. It's probably at least 90 outside still. So Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is Celsius, like 35 or something.
Yeah, something along those lines. And that's the thing. We've actually gotten a bit of a break. It was extremely hot here for a while, where we were up to, I think it was 107 at one point,
Oh,
Fahrenheit,
geez. Yeah.
for quite a while. And so, anyways, but we've hit a break now where we're much more temperate. We're back down in the I think the 50s and 60s. So
Nice.
like sweater weather.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want some of that. I won't get it for probably a month, but
yeah. Well, these are the days that I find, instead of just trying to oh, and yeah, 107 Celsius. These are the days that I find that I try to instead of just complain about the weather, like the heat, I try to put on my writer's hat and think about how would I describe this heat? How would my characters react in this heat or in this temperature and that kind of thing? And
yeah.
I don't know, I find it helps distract you from the misery of it all. But thank you very much for joining us tonight, or joining me
That's
tonight. This is really exciting, and so as I was saying off the top to the chat, is that we've got a few things to discuss. We're going to discuss some songwriting. We're going to discuss just writing in general as we go
Yep.
along, and also I think probably the most pertinent thing to start with is, well, did you have anything you wanted to say off the top before we get into questions? Do you have anything that you wanted to start
Well,
with?
on the subject of songwriting, I brought a certain instrument with me.
Nice.
Yes. Although I am currently holding it backwards.
It's hard to tell on camera if it's mirrored or not.
Yeah.
So, well, that's great. I'm sure that's going to be awesome to bring into this. But one thing I wanted to get into first is we do have, as we're talking about topics that we could cover and discuss a little bit, I think the more pertinent thing to discuss right now is the fact that you have a new book being released very soon. Do you want to let us
I
know
do.
about the book?
It is Guardian. It is book 2 of the Reaper Saga. The Reaper Saga is the series that I've been working on for the past 4 years. That sounds right. The first book came out in, was that April of 2020? Which, let me tell you, not the time to be releasing a book, but what did I know?
Yeah.
But this is book 2 that's coming out now. For those of you who don't know, the Reaper Saga is the story of Raven, a girl who can fly and see the dead, and her adventures trying to reconnect with her family after her entire town disappears under mysterious circumstances.
Wow. So is there any hints or clues that you can give us for book 2 of this that's going to be coming out soon?
Let's see here. She goes back to her town.
So the town is found.
Yes.
This does sound very good. This is something that I have to. That's one thing that I find with doing these interviews is I'm ending up with stacks of books piling up around me that I want to read, because I just learned about all of these fantastic stories that have been out there and that I've been come up with. So how long is this book series, do you think this book series will turn out to be?
Fingers crossed, 4 books. It will definitely go to 3. The 3rd one is written. I'm about to start beta reading for it. It is quite the arc from the 1st book to the 3rd book, and then there will be a 4th one I'm hypothetically going to write in November. We'll see how that works out. Currently, my plot is there is a character who does stuff.
That's a really key point of having a plot, is there's a character that does stuff in this place and things happen to them and they have to get past that.
Yeah, I don't have the things that happen to them and how they get past. I don't have any of that. I just have character who does stuff.
Well, that's a good starting point to have. I'm excited to see how this is going to roll out. So when is the book being released and where can people find it?
At the moment, there are no links at the moment, unfortunately. I just uploaded the files this morning. But you will be able to find it on Amazon, on Apple iBooks. You'll eventually be able to find it in like Target and Barnes & Noble, places like that. I will have links up on my website as soon as I have links. But
that's fantastic. And for those of you who haven't noticed the little line across the bottom, these are ways that you can connect and look for information on when those links go live and how you can connect with these books.
Yep.
So you say you're looking at possibly writing the 4th book in November. Is that going to be a part of NaNoWriMo?
It will. I used to be a municipal liaison for NaNoWriMo. I was sort of nudged into retirement by my husband, who's going, "You are having too much stress. You need to stop."
Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it is a huge thing. And to be fair, things were not going well with me with NaNoWriMo. Not the organization, it was the fellow volunteers I was trying to work with. Things were not going well. Which, ironically, having looked at the new batch of volunteers for the region I used to work for, I think it would be better this year.
Oh, that's good. That's the thing, because any kind of animosity or issues or things behind the scenes can really kind of start, if not necessarily in 1 year, but over an extended period of time, can start seeping into those that are being helped by the liaisons and things like that. And yeah, it's always sad when that kind of stuff happens, but that's part of being human, is we have our own personalities and our own ways of interacting. But it's good that you're able to recognize that and step aside.
Yeah. And fortunately, I managed to recruit a wonderful volunteer just before I left. They weren't quite old enough last year to do the job. This year they are old enough that you have to be 18. Okay. And they were 17 last year. It's like, come on, you're 1 month too young. Why?
Oh, no. Those December babies.
Yep, December baby.
That's terrible. I do, almost every year I sign up for a NaNoWriMo. And almost every year I don't complete. Actually, what I mean, almost every year I don't complete. I haven't completed yet.
My first year winning was November of, what was that? 2013, which was also not the best year for me. I'm sure you understand health issues.
Yes.
Bad things happened. We don't talk about it anymore.
Oh, that was actually my year as well. That was 2013 is when I was hit by the car.
Oh, yeah.
So 2013 was the year of life-changing events.
Yeah. It was kind of rough in 2013, and it was connected to NaNoWriMo, but very tangentially. So for a while thereafter, it was like, do I want to keep doing this? Yes, but no. And then I really, really won in 2017 because I finished my first novel, which was Reaper, which is the first book of the Reaper Saga, of course.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking at possibly doing it with this year is not, I mean, my book is going to be more than 50,000 words. So I'm going to end up putting 50,000 words down, but I'm looking at more of using it to bite a big chunk off the book.
That's good. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, because it's been a slow haul. Let's just leave it at that. And I've got some people that are very interested in seeing things moving a little bit faster. So
excellent. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm excited for this. So how long did it take you to write this book that's coming out, the new one, book 2?
Well, the first draft took me 10 days. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend writing a book that fast. The editing process is terrible, and you don't sleep, basically.
Yeah, that's quick. That's a very quick turnaround for a novel.
Yeah, so that was rough. But it took me about 3 years to edit it into proper shape. This is the book that I tell people I read the first draft and I cried.
Wow. And I'm assuming not happy tears?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
am I frozen?
You did freeze. Oh, there we go. You're back.
Oh, I did. Okay. I'm not sure if you could hear me at all.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you at least, yeah.
I'm not sure if you heard that I read the first draft of Guardian and I cried.
Yeah, that's so I would just responded back to that I'm assuming it was not happy tears.
I did not hear you at all. Nope.
So it wasn't happy tears that you cried then. You were upset with the first draft?
Oh, the first draft was terrible. It was all of the characters were out of character. There was absolutely no setting at all. So you had no idea where you were, what was going on. It was rough. It was really bad.
Wow. What was the impetus to write it in such a short period of time then?
I was not sleeping. And I figured if I'm not sleeping, I might as well be writing.
I mean, it's hard to fight that logic. But again, I think it's also not necessarily just I guess it all ties into the 10 days. But I'm sure with chronic pain, I know I didn't sleep for 5 years, basically. Yeah. And your brain goes to different places. And that's some of the stuff that I've looked back on some of the writing that I've done from back then. And it's like, okay, this was good, but it can be a lot better. And that's why I'm starting to go back and revise some of the stuff that I did in my peak pain levels, because I'm not normally a revisionist when it comes to my writing. But if it's a story that I truly believe in and I think can do really well, and there's a solid reason why, then I'll go back and do a revision on it. Yeah,
I'm a hardcore revisionist because I'm a discovery draft writer. I'm not sure what word I just said, but it wasn't the right one. But yeah, I do discovery drafts. So my first draft is always, wow, this is terrible. Let's make this better.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. I agree with that. The first draft is always terrible. And that's why even just today, a friend of mine on Facebook said, give me a piece of advice to everybody. And I said, you can't edit a blank page, just write.
Yeah,
and exactly. That's one of my mottos. And that's the thing. So I will go back and rewrite and rework and edit and draft 2, 3, 4, 5, get through what I need to get through it done. But when I've got a product that's finished and published and out there, to go back and pull it. That's what I mean by revisioning. Being a revisionist is by reworking the entire story, pulling it and replacing. And there's 2 stories that I've got that I will be doing that with, just because I do believe in them greatly, and it was during that time that this happens. But generally, once something is left the nest, I try not to call it back.
Yeah, and I was very cautious when I was releasing the first book of the Reaper Saga. I wanted the second one to be written, and ideally the third one, because originally I was only planning on 3-book series. And then I got to the end of the third book and went, crap, there's more.
That's great. And no, that's a great way of having it. And I completely agree, and I truly appreciate that you have that mentality of, before you start really pumping book 1, have at least a good chunk of or all of book 2 written, and be thinking about book 3, because if it does pick up And especially if you're a new writer and you've got one story that comes out and it hits really hot, and you've got people really excited and chomping at the bit, if they have to wait 3 years for the next book, you're going to lose a whole pile of that group. So having something that, in short order, that you can carry them forward with in a reasonable amount of time, I think is a fantastic methodology of going forward. And that builds your name as being reliable and allows you to beg forgiveness down the road if you do need more time with another project.
Yeah. And I have a tentative release date for the third book of 2023. We'll see what happens with that one, because this book required quite a bit of work.
But the book 2 required a bit of work. But I'm assuming...
Well, book 2 did too. Book 3 also required quite a bit of work. I
see. But was book 3, I'm assuming, wasn't written in 10 days?
No, it was written in about 6 months. Not consecutively. I wrote the first half during NaNoWriMo after I finished the first draft of Guardian, the book that's coming out. And then during one of the camp months, I finished the second half, which is completely different from the first half.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more of a span between the writing of that, which is good. And it's great to be able to sit back and think. Now, when you do have a span like that, do you find that you need to go back and reread everything you've written, or can you just go read 2 or 3 pages or chapters and then jump back in?
I tend to reread everything that I have written. I try not to change anything, because I'm a firm believer in don't change anything until you have the full draft.
That's very
What really surprised me with book 3, though, is I let it sit for about 2 years before I went through and did the entire revision. And during that time, I went, I need to make this other character more important, because they're the spearhead for book 4.
See, and that's where I find not necessarily fully outlining, but having like a full plot outline, but having at least a conceptual outline of how things are moving forward and your stories are going to work. I was going to pause just to say, Taylor, thank you very much for the raid. I greatly appreciate it. How are you tonight? We are in conversation with Eli Kwake, discussing their new book, and then we'll also be discussing some songwriting and just writing in general. So welcome, and thank you for coming through for this Thursday night edition of Scribe in Conversation With. And that's also to say to anyone in chat, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat, and we'll address them and chat with them as we go along. The only streams that we do on Thursday nights that have quiet moments of chat ignoring is when we're recording the podcast. So when you do editing, and I have to say, I'm asking this question knowing a little bit of your answer already, because for those of you who don't know, during the Twitch Writers Con, Eli and I were on a panel together where we were discussing editing, self-editing your work. So with that, how would you describe your editing process when you're doing a book?
When I'm doing a book, the first thing I do is I read the book. The second thing I do is I read the chapter that I'm going to be revising first, which is usually the first one. And then I completely rewrite it. That is my first thing that I do, is I completely rewrite the entire book from beginning to end, while taking into account any notes that I made during my first read through.
So when you completely, you don't mean that you take the paragraph and build in around the paragraph, you kind of set that to the side and do a full rewrite.
Yeah, I do a full rewrite. I'll use the same concepts, the same general plots. Sometimes I'll go off on a tangent. With the rewrite of book 3, there was 2 and a little bit of another chapter that I completely rewrote from scratch. Because what I originally had, I read it and read, that does not work.
Now, is it all stuff that are you that objective to be able to look at your work and be like, that is not what I needed for this at all? Or is there some stuff where you have trouble throwing the baby out with the bathwater, where it's like, I really like this scene, I don't want to get rid of it? Like, do you have that, or are you pretty good at just being harsh and cutting things that need to be cut? If
If it really needs to be cut, I'm very, very good at saying, nope, you're gone. If there is a little bit of dialogue or a paragraph that I particularly like, I'll see if I can splice it in. But if I can't, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Now, do you, when speaking of dialogue, when you're writing and you're an exploratory writer, do you or discovery writer, do you write your dialogue, like sit down and consider and play out your dialogue in the chunk as you're writing it, or do you use placeholders saying they're saying this, they're saying this is the overall point of how I want the conversation to end, and then move on and finish writing and come back and redo that in the draft? So do you?
Oh no, I write the dialogue as I'm writing.
You go straight through with it all.
Yep, I go straight through. I tend to be a start at the beginning and go all the way to the end writer. I can't usually jump around.
Yeah, and it is, and I find it's, I mean, unless you're using the in media res plot outline, jumping around with your story is kind of difficult to keep it going. Outlining and plotting, jump around all you want, and I find that's often very important. But I think that, if you're going through, because that's the way I like to do things as well, is I will outline how I want things to kind of overall go, and once I have the skeleton in my head, then I just start writing, and then very similarly go back and start reworking things for that.
Yeah, and I can edit out of order. I don't always. Sometimes it's like my first edit through, because I do rewrite from beginning to end, I will go in order. But on my second or third pass, usually the third book was weird. But usually I will be going through and going, okay, so I need to rework this section right here based on this feedback that I've gotten from my alpha reader or my beta readers or what have you.
That makes sense. And I think that is a good spot or a good point to be able to shift back and forth on that. And Quinn, definitely you can ask questions about writing when we're done later.
Yes.
Of course. That's what this is all about, is the writer's chat. So do you have any other projects that you're coming up after you're done with this series? Is there another project that you've got, a series you've got in mind, or are you just going to kind of take a breath and let the ideas percolate a little bit?
I'm actually working on two different projects right now. One is probably going to be a duology just because of length. It is a sort of a riff off of, what is that called? Journey to the West. It's Chinese allegory for enlightenment. And it is basically Journey to the West, but with Vikings going south.
All right. That's a nice. I love stories and ideas that have that kind of thing where it's a play on something that's already, that we already kind of know about or have a certain concept of.
Yeah, and then the other project, the other one that I'm working on is Alice in Wonderland, but as a spaghetti western. Nice.
I would definitely be interested in learning more about that one. That's another thing, another style of writing that I love, is when you have people that will change things. Like, that just brings to mind the Star Wars being done as the Shakespearean play. I don't know if you've read that book or not.
Right. I've heard of that.
Yeah, and it was pretty well done. Or again, like Abraham Lincoln as a vampire hunter.
I loved that movie.
Oh, it was.
And the book.
Yeah, I have to read the book, but I have to say that's one of those books or one of those movies where I thought it was cheesy and silly, like a Sharknado kind of thing. And then I decided to watch it one day when I wasn't feeling well, and same thing, I absolutely fell in love with it. It's the concept they did, the way they laid it out, the ideas, the design. It was almost believable. It was really well done. Yeah, so I'm glad that you found that as well, because there's a lot of people, I think, that immediately when you say that you like that movie, you're kind of like, are you sure?
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't give it a chance, but my husband, I call him Mr. Twinkle. My husband and I went to see it at the cheap theater near us at the time that it was there, and we both just went, this is really good, actually.
Yeah. They did a great job with it, and I do also love movies that aren't the greatest. Like, one that I always refer back to is Rubber. I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's the horror movie about the tire that is a serial killer.
I have not seen that, but that is because I am not horror movies.
Oh, not horror
Not
movies. Yeah. So if you're into horror movies, it's about a psychic serial killer tire from a car that's just rolling around murdering people. So
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
fun stories. But yeah, so talking about writing things like that, I did a interview a while ago with a composer who did. We talked about composing music and writing music because that is a form of writing, and we also discussed just in general storytelling in classical music or in instrumental music. And you and I got in a conversation around that time as well about another form of writing, which is songwriting, actually putting lyrics and that kind of stuff down. Which is, in fact, this is a really nice tie-in, I find, to have just recently talking about the classical side of this. And I've also done a talk previously on storytelling in songs. So just like songs that actually take, like The Lady of Shalott and Lorena McKenna, where she takes Lord Alfred Tennyson's poem and does it out as a song. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about songwriting. So how long have you been doing songwriting?
That's an excellent question that I don't actually have a concrete answer to. I started when I was very young. I did not have music to go with my songs. The first ones that I wrote, they were just, I'm singing a song now and it is about whatever the song was about. And they were all a cappella. Some of them were not very good and I don't remember them anymore. Some of them were pretty good and I do remember some of those.
That's great. That reminds me of Winnie the Pooh. Just walking along and all of a sudden singing a song.
Yeah. And when I am now turning 33. So when I was about 29, my friend Faye gave me a ukulele. And I am completely self-taught with a little help from Mr. Twinkle, my husband.
That's amazing.
But yeah, when I started writing songs on the ukulele, it was like, okay, I can do this. Probably not well, but I can do this.
At least you had the courage to step in and try.
Yeah.
And get moving forward on like expanding your horizons with that. Just as an off note, do you have any other instruments that you play?
I also play what is it called? Recorder. And I used to play clarinet.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, 'cause that's something that I really like is, like we discussed, storytelling in music and having. That's something that I've always, as a small child and moving through my entire life, is when I'm listening to a song, I listen to the melody, to the tune, to the song itself, but I've always been drawn to the lyrics and to what the words are and how they're going to move you and how they're going to carry you through, which is the number one reason why I've always got classical music playing in the background when I'm streaming and when I'm writing, is because if I have lyrics, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to focus on the words in the song, or I'm going to stop writing and focus to the words in the song.
I'm a little different there. I also always have music playing, but I can do words. It depends on the song, though. Like, I can edit to Hamilton. I cannot write to Hamilton.
That's a good point, and that is something too. I find if it's words that I don't know, like, and that's another reason why I love music from other countries and other cultures, and languages you don't speak, because then you can have the words flowing to them, but you're not having the same emotional pull to those words or a connection to those words because you don't understand what's being said.
Yeah, or if it's a song that I know it so well that it's like, oh yeah, I'm in this song, whatever, I don't care, blah blah words.
That's a strong power to have.
Yeah, it helps that I am ADHD and I tend to hyper focus or hyper fixate even on whatever it is that I'm doing, and everything else around me just becomes background noise. I don't even hear it.
That makes sense, and that's that would be also, I think, assist in writing a book in 10 days, being able to just block everything else out and focus on what that is that you're doing.
Yeah, although I was getting about 2 hours of sleep a night during that 10-day stretch. I had so many quad shots of espresso that no, never again.
Yeah, that's when you start getting the jitters. But that's as long as you didn't start going to like straight caffeine pills and that kind of stuff.
No.
That's the road you don't want to go down. Oh, sorry.
No worries.
That's my saying there's no movement in my daughter's crib alarm. And I'm assuming that's because my wife has picked her up. So
probably.
Yeah. But that's so. When you're writing songs, what kind of like, is there? You're writing them now mainly for the ukulele. Is there like a genre of songwriting that you get into, or like how does your songwriting process work?
It depends on the song. Usually, I will start with okay, so I want this particular song to be in the key of C, G, whatever. So I'll start with the key, and then I'll figure out okay, what chord progression do I want to go with, and then I'll figure out what is this song about. Usually. Every now and again, I will go in with a set. Okay, I'm writing a song about this.
So as you're playing the melody or as you're playing the song, the words start bubbling up for you.
Yes. And it helps that I have a very strong background in poetry. I started writing poetry when I was 8.
Wow.
So,
and that actually brings up the question I was going to say is that would you... because there's different types of songwriting, but I think a lot of it does come down kind of to poetry. So that's essentially what you're working on. The way you work is kind of the poetic, so like a poem side of thing that's just being set to music is kind of how you describe what you're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's it with the rock and rap having favorite lyrics. Rock, yes. Rap, I've always been a huge fan of rap. Grew up in my young years with the beginnings I was born in 1980, so I grew up with all the original rappers and all the stuff coming up, and so it's always been a huge part of my life. And that's the thing is that rap stands for rhythm and prose, or rhythm and poetry. So it is literally like that's what this whole thing is about. It's like it's spoken word, it's poetry, it's expressing yourself with that.
Yeah, and the singing and songwriting that we think of today, it came out of old chants. It sort of progressed out of these old chants that told stories, that taught lessons, all of these other things. And that's something that I try to always do with my songwriting.
That's a great angle to go at it, because I think that's the thing. I think when something is set to music, it has more of a memorable impact, because I think there's just this innate connection that we have to rhythm and flow and having the words connected to it. If we can remember the melody, if we can remember the tune of the song as it went, then the words are not going to be that far behind most of the time. And it's going to give us that memory of that time that we were there and that we're connected with it. So is this, when you're doing your songwriting, are you building a catalog? Are you thinking about releasing something, or is this just more for yourself? Or
it originally started with just myself. I was just writing songs because I wanted to write songs. And was it last year? No, it wasn't last year. It was last spring, I want to say. On my own Twitch stream, I did a music stream where I played basically all of the songs that I still remember how to play. There's a few that I have forgotten how to play, whatever. And it came down to about 16 songs, and I had Sable Aradia on with me to talk about the music. And she asked me at the end, so when are you releasing an album? And I went, not this year.
Yeah, that I imagine has to be a very daunting prospect. I think. Yeah. How would you? That's a question. As just a side note, how would you compare that? Looking at writing a novel and releasing and throwing it out there, versus the stress of writing songs and releasing them out as an album. Do you say it's comparable level of stress and putting yourself out there, or how do those compare for you? I
don't know, because I haven't done the second one yet.
But just thinking about the concept of it, like the idea of, does it frighten you as much as the idea of releasing your first novel, or is it?
I'm not really sure. I think it might actually frighten me a little bit less, just because I've been singing since I first learned how. My mom tells the story of me as a very small toddler going up to my father in church and demanding the microphone so that I could sing.
Did you get the microphone?
I don't know. She doesn't tell that part. Probably not.
Probably not to encourage any more behavior like that. That's fantastic. So you've always had the musical bug with you, and the poetic, the storytelling, the connection. So what kind of messages are you? Is there, if you're releasing an album, is there kind of like, or possibly that concept? Is there like an overall flow that you have, like a overarching theme that you have for the songs, or are they just kind of connection, just a collection of songs?
I haven't really taken too close a look at my songs to try and figure out the layout of the album because that's not something I'd be doing this year. One project at a time. I've got a book coming out in 13 days.
Yeah.
So that's something I'll take a look at maybe in December, maybe in the spring. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But probably if I had to guess, a theme would be storytelling through song, something along that line.
That's great, and that's an awesome theme. What kind of messages are you imparting in these songs? And do you want to share any of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just practicing one of my creepier songs today, which, if that's okay with you, I can go ahead and play that one.
Of course, we're getting closer to the witching season, so a little bit of a creepier song works.
Let me take a quick drink. There we go. All right, so this is called 3 Times True, and it is it's a ghost story.
Excellent.
The old ones say, 3 times done as the light dies away. Hopes and dreams come here to die as I sing my lullaby. Let me sing you a spell. Is this heaven or hell? 3 times true, as the old ones say, 3 times said by the light of day. Fickle friends, a suspicious mind, do not seek, you will always find. Let me sing you a spell. Is this heaven or hell? 3 times true, as the old ones say. I did not speak, I just went away. I sang songs on the hanging tree as they tied that new song. Let me sing you a spell.
Wow, that was hauntingly beautiful. That was amazing.
Thank you.
And that's quite. And you're right. It is storytelling through music. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So was that just? Was that one of those songs that the music that haunting melody just kind of inspired those words for you, or how did you come to that song?
I came to that song. A friend of mine told me you have to write a song about a witch, and I went, okay, okay.
That's excellent. Well, I think you definitely hit the mark on that one.
Yeah. That is one of my favorite storytelling songs. The other one of my favorite storytelling songs that I have written is actually a reworking of House of the Rising Sun.
Oh wow.
Yes, which everybody's familiar with the animal version. I would argue that Joni Mitchell has a much better version. She hits on more of the beats of the story within that song.
Okay. I'd have to re-listen to that again.
Yeah.
So I know I had in high school we did a cafe kind of thing where people were performing and doing the different things, and one of our teachers got up. He was, I think, one of the science teachers, and everyone thought he was kind of this geeky guy, and he got up and with an accordion to perform
Oh,
at this students' cafe, and everyone was kind of like chuckle. Well, a lot of people were chuckling and giggling and kind of like laughing at this thing, and then he cracked off one of the greatest renditions of House of the Rising Sun that I have ever heard on that accordion,
nice.
and just like silenced the entire room and got a standing ovation at the end. So I like those kind of
Excellent.
things. Is it the full like 12-minute length of the House of the Rising Sun, or?
The one that I do is probably closer to 8 minutes, like
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Did you want to play a snippet of it so we can see what a little bit of what it's like?
Sure. Let me see. Um, so let's see. What chord do I start on? A minor. All right. So and then it keeps going, but there's this entire story of the next verse is the usual one. The only thing a gambler needs is a suitcase and a trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And then the verse after that is sorry, I have to go through the verse before I can remember the next one.
No problem.
uh, he fills his glasses up to the brim, and he'll pass the cards around. And the only time that the only pleasure he gets out of life is rambling from town to town.
That's great. I have to say I agree with this concept of an album at some point.
Yeah.
I think you're definitely onto some stuff with this. So is this something that which of your songs do you write them down at all, or do you just have them all kept to memory?
I keep most of them to memory. I do have I do have all of the lyrics written down. the trouble that I get into is when I'm writing a song, I tend to write down the lyric and go, oh, I'll just remember the chords.
And then you get 30 songs into your repertoire and forget songs 1 and 2.
20 songs into my repertoire at this point, and I have forgotten at least 4 of them.
Wow. Hopefully these are ones that will come back to you, because that's but that's the true fashion too, right? Because in the times of original storytelling and songwriting, it was, especially in Europe and other cultures with classical music, nothing was written down. It was all taught. You taught the songs, or you learned the song, and you played it over and over and over and over until you knew it, and then that you taught it to someone else. And it's more of a common thing of actually taking down like notations of notes and things. So it's nice to still be paying homage to the original methods of just moving things forward, or of doing it without writing things down.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I did do that for a while. I have started to say, okay, the next time I write a song, I have to write down the chords for a future stupider me.
And take it from me, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I got hit by a car and I lost a lot of my past memory. Stuff that completely is gone now.
I have a seizure disorder, so every now and again I go to access a chunk of brain and it goes, excuse me, you want me to what?
Yeah. Isn't that always lovely? You know it's there. And there's just like, no, it's not happening. So before we get to our final question, why don't we see if we can answer some questions from chat?
Yes, absolutely.
So does anyone have any questions in chat? So Laura was talking about foreshadowing. Is there a suspense horror game where the melody for most of a song is D-E-A-D, D-E-A-D? I'm not sure. I don't even know what that would sound like.
Yeah, I don't. What was the chords?
Just chords D-E-A-D repeated over and over again. So dead repeated over and over again.
I don't think that would work, but let me see here. What's the cheater E? That's the cheater. It's a little too happy for a horror game, I would say.
Yeah. Unless you, I mean, that is something I enjoy doing, is in some of the horror scenes that I write, is using really upbeat, happy songs in very disturbing ways.
You may have noticed that the first song that I sang, 3 Times True, was in C, which is a very happy chord or key.
It was, and that's why as you were playing through it, the only thing that I kept coming to me for was just the thinking of hauntingly beautiful, because it is like there's this beautiful melody to it, and it is this like this tone that like grabs you and pulls you and tugs you along, and you want to be going along for the ride for it because it's carrying you for this beautiful kind of story. But then you stop and listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's not quite like it matches really well, but it's such a mismatch.
Yeah. And I tried to give it away right from the beginning. Hopes and dreams come here to die as I sing my lullaby was the second lyric in that song.
And that's what I love, the fact that it plays like a lullaby. Quinn, don't link it just for you can put it in the Discord, but if you put it in here, Nightbot will slap you and delete everything you've ever said and put you in timeout. No.
Yes, don't do that.
Yeah, my Nightbot is very cranky when it comes to links. And there's a reason for that, especially with the stuff that's been happening in Twitch lately. I'm very strict on what gets shared on my channel. So I know I trust everyone in my chat, but just to prevent anyone from coming in quickly and doing something silly and then running. That's what we have. So
yeah.
That makes sense.
Understandable. The hate raids have been a thing.
They have, and I've started picking up the same thing that I don't know if people out there have heard of this or not, but if you put your chat when you're not streaming into emote only mode, because you are actually, through Twitch rules and regulations, you are liable for everything that is said in your chat, even when you're not streaming and you're not live on air, because if someone goes to your channel, they can see your chat and they can still type in your chat. And if any messages that are set up there, you can be dinged by Twitch for them. So the safest thing to do is to put in emote only chat and block anything like that from happening.
And I've been doing that when I remember, which is most of the time, but
yeah, I think I've remembered 3 times. but it's sad that we have to do this. It really is.
Yeah.
I think, I'm hoping that Twitch would have enough sense to be able to like look at the history of a channel and see what's happening and realize that it was a hate raid and was something that they didn't try to get into. But apparently, if it happens when you're streaming and you've got mods in chat, then Twitch will actually question you about that, being like, why didn't the mods catch it? Why didn't the mods jump in? So it's becoming a rather serious thing that's happening. So that and the Haas follower, which...
Oh, God. Ugh.
Yeah, I've never... I don't generally click on my followers' names until I've been chatting with them for a while and I know who they are and I kind of can trust a little bit, and I'll check to see a little bit more about them. But generally when I get a new follower, I don't. Just out of pure paranoia.
Yeah.
So my brain will like to jump to strange places and use inappropriate words, or not inappropriate words, but just wrong words for when I'm saying things.
Right. Yes,
so for that I was just about to say, out of pure paranoia, my brain was like, out of pure nudity. I'm like, no, not nudity. No. Paranoia, wrong word.
Yes.
But
my favorite is when it's like, that is not the word I'm looking for. Yes, it is. No, it's not.
Yeah, that's not. And sometimes you have no choice but to just let the word out. And then someone's like, but that's not... Yeah, I know. It's... Yeah. It's fine. So Quinn, you had questions about writing. What were you looking at saying? You said you had an idea for an original novel. It's a passion project, but probably won't be published. There's nothing wrong with that. But you asked a little bit about writing later when we are done. You were looking for writing tips, and that's how you found me, but that question was worded really... So, yeah, of course, yeah. So what questions did you have? And you were saying, too, with that, the notes were on the music box. It was in a minor with the notes spaced out. So I could see that possibly working if it was sort of like just a ting.
Yeah, if
ting,
it was like...
Ting, ting. Almost, that actually brings to mind the Cacophony of the Dolls song from the movie Akira, when the dolls grow giant and start bleeding milk from all their orifices, and there's that really high tone ting 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 in the background. So I can see how that would kind of match in, or could match in.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Again, sometimes it's the juxtaposition that is jarring, which works with that, and that's one of the reasons why I love writing in twists so much, because you carry people along, building a good level of expectation, and then everything gets shattered at the end. Because that's one thing I love doing, and I realized I didn't put this together until recently, where when everything changes for the protagonist in this story, be it 2/3 of the way through, at the climax, wherever it is, whatever story I'm writing on, I also like to kind of shatter the reader's world and turn their perspective on everything as well. And that's kind of a fun thing. Hey, Grim, how are you tonight?
Hey, Grim.
Welcome. We're just doing an interview, and we're in the question period. If you have any questions about writing or anything for Eli as well on writing, songwriting, or just life in general, I suppose.
You could even ask me about Kickstarters, because apparently I know about those now.
Yes, well, that is actually a question I had as well, is did that video from the con ever come out on the Kickstarter thing that you did? The panel that you did? I haven't checked. To be clear, I have not checked, but I haven't seen if any of the videos from con have been released.
I think some of them have, but I also have not checked, so I'm not sure.
Okay, I'd have to look into it, because I have... I'm mentoring a children's book author in Sweden right now, and she's looking at doing a Kickstarter, and I wanted to connect her with more information on how to do a successful Kickstarter for that, because I know that is something that you have been successful with. You've had 2 successful Kickstarters now, correct?
Yes, I had my first successful one in, actually I don't remember what month that was, but back a few months ago, and then The other one was
Nope, you're back.
am I unfrozen?
Yeah, it was just a momentary
Okay.
pause.
Okay.
So it was a few months ago and then a few weeks ago?
Yes, it ended in, actually, I guess that was 2 months ago almost. It ended at the end of July, so.
Wow. Yeah, that's part of the thing is like monetizing your writing is difficult, and trying to sort these things out. That's one thing I'm looking at doing is monetizing a section of my website. And
Yeah.
that's a really hard decision to come to, and what to
Yeah.
have on the other side of that wall. So yeah, these are all. I should actually, what I should do, what I will do is have you come back on just for a conversation about monetizing your writing and kickstarting and raising funds and that kind of stuff. If you're willing to, I'd love to have you back for that.
Absolutely.
That would be a great thing for that. So Quinn is saying, so you have an idea. The actual general plot is pretty generic, but the first major arc was going to be the good guys lose pretty bad. That's generally how, especially if it's kind of a hero's journey or a monomyth kind of story, that's generally what you want to have happen. You have a fascination with smaller mythology, especially Native American, Peloponnesian, and South Asian myths and monsters you want to include, but stay away from larger mythos like Greek or Egyptian. I respect that. I respect being able to pull in smaller mythos and myths and legends from lesser known or from smaller groups is fantastic. Tragic for the main character dying. That's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's why in these plot outlines it's referred to as the resurrection. It's either a literal or a figurative resurrection of the main character coming back from that. So I think you're on a right path with that. So you're thinking about doing it in the style of one of these myths and monsters, like to pay homage to, or to. Sure, you can put in the general plot. That'd be great. Grim, you're doing fine. Just started to come back to Twitch after a long break, but apparently one stream ended, shutting you down emotionally, which led to your break from platform.
I'm sorry.
I am sorry to hear that. Both, yeah, that's terrible. That's something that, you really. That's why I always try to keep things positive and happy and supportive on my streams, and that's something that.
Yeah.
There's so much crap out there that we don't need to be adding into it. So I'm sorry that you went through something that hit you down like that, Grim. It would be your own story with those ideas. That's all right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, and we
I
have.
kind of wish that I could plot the way that most people plot. The way that I plot is I sit down and I go, okay, I'm going to write this now.
But I think there's a way for plotting with that as well. And Fantasine, thank you very much for the raid. I have to get that stuff set up, but I don't have that audio stuff set up in this panel or in this scene, so I apologize. But thank you very much for the raid, Fantasine. Welcome, raiders. I greatly appreciate you all being here. I hope you had a great stream, Fantasine. We're just finishing a conversation or a chat with Eli Kwake. If it's long, Laura, you can put it in the Discord in the writing channel, and we can look at that as well and discuss it another time. But that's something that, or we can discuss it on the Discord as well. And that's something I do have to say to people is my schedule has been hectic. I know there's a bunch of stuff that people are waiting for me to read. I will be doing that over the next few days. I've been adjusting my schedule, so I've got some things to go in and do that. But what I was going to say was, yes, for the plotting and outlining, I think I am of the opinion that there is a path of doing both. And that if you're a discovery writer and you sit down and you say, I'm going to write this from here to the end, I don't think there's any difficulty or any problem in having, there's the Discord link, Terror, after you've written it, to look back at it. And you don't necessarily have to plug in all the plot points all the way down the plot outline.
Oh, no.
But look at it and it's kind of like, okay, at this point, I'm this far along in the story, have I done these things? Have I kind of hit these marks that you naturally know that you should be hitting? And so holding it up to a plot to see, like, is this a Freytag's Pyramid? Is this a Fichtean Curve? Is this the hero's journey? Is this some other form? Like, is this in media res? And knowing what those outlines are about have I hit those marks that are going to kind of carry the story along comfortably? And if not, going back and kind of adjusting and tweaking. So I think there is a spot for plotting, even if you don't plot.
Yeah. And I know that I tend to write less of the Western structures. I more tend to write Kisho Tenketsu, which is one of the Eastern structures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm frozen again.
Yeah, you're frozen a little bit. Your voice was coming through.
Come on. Cooperate with me.
Just while we're waiting for Eli to come back, that is something that's a very interesting point that was just brought up. There you go.
Oh, there we are. Sorry about that.
No problem. So you're saying with the Eastern structure, and that's the thing. I've just recently uploaded to my website under Writer's Tools 7 or 8 common Western story structures of that we talk about and that everyone knows a lot about. And that's one of the things that I'm factoring in. I'll be adding in coming up soon is more Eastern story style structures and other story structures that people may not be as familiar with.
Go off of Wi-Fi, I think is the problem. Okay. Sorry about that. I have gone off of the Wi-Fi, I think is the problem.
I see.
I'm hoping that's the problem.
Well, we can. It's been. You were bad. You were bad on stream. You kept getting distracted, searching for things, researching ship things for World Anvil Challenge. Yeah, that's the thing. There's some, and I think that's a part of being a writer on stream is you just have to know that some days you're just not going to write that much.
Yeah, some days you squirrel off and you come back when you're ready.
Yeah, and sometimes, and honestly, that's what you sometimes need is to be able to do that. Is to just, if your brain isn't focused and you can't make words do what you want them to do, I find sometimes it's better to just go off and focus on something else for a little while and have some fun. So yeah, most definitely. But well, thank you very much for joining me, Eli. Let's answer. I've always got a surprise question for my guests at the end of the interviews that we do, and the question that I have for you tonight, because you did say in your bio that you apart from being at Renaissance fairs and making mischief there, you also do burlesque. So my question for you tonight is, which fairy tale creature or character do you think would make the best burlesque dancer and why?
I thought about this beforehand. I did not actually come to an answer, so you're getting the off-the-cuff answer. I'm going with Baba Yaga. Because you would never expect it.
That is very true. That is very true. That was not the answer an answer I was expecting. That either.
No.
So.
And that's the beautiful thing about burlesque is half the time you're going, okay, so this is going to be like sexy girls, and not necessarily at all with burlesque.
Yep. I used to be friends. I am friends with people that used to run a burlesque group here. Actually, a couple of different burlesque groups. And yeah, it's fantastic to see the shows and the positivity and the dancing and the talent and everything that comes through it. It can be a very supportive art form. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they're wonderful people. I'm good friends with the showrunners for here in Los Angeles. We have a show called WTF Lesque.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to see Baba in her hut doing a can line.
Yes, exactly.
I think you may have just inspired some fan fiction.
Excellent. That's what I'm here for.
That's what we want to do. That is fantastic. So I am. We'll end the interview here, and I am going to. So if people want to stick around, I am going to jump into discussing the contest that we have, and then we're going to be ending the stream a bit early tonight because I have something else I need to get into. But thank you very much for joining me, Eli. I greatly appreciate your time and for coming and joining and for your conversation. I'll definitely have you back to talk about Kickstarters and financing and things like that. There's a lot when it comes to being a writer. There's, especially if you're self-publishing and things like that, there's just, making yourself an entity, making yourself a business, being able to like publish things. Like there's just so much stuff that factors into this. So I think this definitely a longer conversation that should be granted to that topic for sure.
I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Chat, I'm just going to go into be right back for just a moment, and then I'll be back to discuss the launch of the new contest. So
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being part of this. So just one moment, chat. We'll be